guys, welcome to Clockwork Noodles for another breakdown of Ancient Magus Bride Season 2, Episode number 6. Thank you guys so much for tuning back in. I hope you guys are looking after yourselves. I will apologise if things seem not as sharp. I have just had a underwater shoot and my eyesight is just still foggy. I think things look sharp, but I'm pretty sure they're probably not as sharp as they normally are. You'll have to bear with me as I'm trying to overcome the cloud of fog that has arisen from working underwater with chlorine. Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We are 8 noodlings away from that magical 700 mark. That is my goal for the summer, and make the noodle bowl a bit more of a noodling place where we have more of us to discuss the magic of anime. My midway review is up, so please go check that out. In that video, I'm crowning top 3 OPs, EDs, and current standing anime halfway through the season. So bear that in mind when you go into it. It's just a little touch base. How am I feeling? What am I enjoying? What am I not enjoying? What are my favourites so far? They can change. They often do change. Let's get straight to it. This week's episode has a nice little duality again. A lot of the Ancient Magus Bride videos seem to have duality going on, where you've got a situation being handled by a different character but also coming up with another character. One circumstance play out where it applies to somebody else, which is definitely this week's episode. Cliffhanger bell at the start, just when we were about to get an answer from Elias, obviously had to happen. If it's not a Japanese school bell, it has to be a bell somewhere, even if it is in the UK. Interesting to think whether Elias now understood the idea of spouse a little bit better, as last week's episode showed us that he maybe didn't quite understand the meaning of spouse, but I think this entire episode's supposed to show you that it's all down to how you interpret certain words. I think I've got a different interpretation, which I'll talk about at the end, which I think might be the word that maybe Chisei is looking for. Counter this week is Renfred and Alice. I think that works really nicely because it's also another apprentice master type situation, but in this sense, Renfred tells us that he sees Alice as a child, which is very different from what I think Elias sees. I don't know if one is better than the other, but I get where he's coming from. It's my duty to protect you. He sees that person that I've grown up with and I've raised as a child, so it's hard for him to see her in any other way. But Elias obviously has the relationship that Alice wants, and we can see Alice gets really upset. It's very obvious that Alice wants to be more. Alice wants to be raised up to the Chisei and Elias standards, but even at the end when she says I don't get it, I think I get what Renfred means. Give you my idea of what I think he's getting at the end as well. And there's always a character like Simeon who comes along and gives you essentially the theory of the episode. And this week's theory is some people will perceive a word in a different way depending on whether it means something to you. Now, he has the example of the Bible. We have religious disputes over the same body of text. I might read a passage and get something completely different than you guys, and that is why I'm here on the anime channel. I will sometimes watch something and get a different meaning than you guys, and it's often interesting to see if we agree, disagree, try to see if we can find a middle ground, or try and just explore different areas. Maybe we're both wrong, which is quite fun. Welcome to the country. It takes 1.5 hours to get to a train station. Sounds about right. I was actually out today on my shoot. There was a bit where you were probably 1.5 hours away if you were driving to a train station. So this really is just the UK all over. Country roads as well. The little country road they drive down in the dark. Recently also come back quite late from shoots. I've done the same thing where you've got a road. They might have a passing place, but it's generally a one-track road, which is very curly. You normally get a hedgerow on either side, or you're going through a field. The funny little comic moment for me was Elias and Ruth both showing a bit of disgust at the idea of having to be in the same room or use each other as an apprentice for that day. That was hilariously funny. I always love those little comic moments in Ancient Magus Bride where we go down to chibi form, and chibi form really, really work. You often know when something is meant to be played off as a laugh or when something is supposed to be serious, which I really like. Chisei then mentioning the whole I'm sleeping in his bed type thing, I was like, okay, normally the perfect place for a misunderstanding. We technically do get clarification, but it didn't really feel like a misunderstanding. We hear exactly as it is. We share a bed. That's just what it is. Elias essentially getting jealous because I can't be with you tonight, and that makes me sad kind of thing. It was difficult to work out if he was just feeling jealous because someone else was sharing the bed with her, or as he says on the roof, I felt lonely. It's a very odd relationship to be exploring for me personally, because again, I see Elias as quite a lot older. I know it's also a interspecies type thing going on as well. It is difficult. I don't know how I feel if they would kiss. Maybe turn into the human form Elias. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. It's a weird one, guys. I don't know how comfortable I am with this or not. We do get a little bit more information from Alice, who essentially just feels guilty because Renfred has protected her repeatedly. And you get to the point where you just don't want someone to protect you, or she wants more. She wants to be seen as equal or greater. She feels bad because obviously we go back to that very twisted Joseph situation where, in general, if Joseph shows up, you know you're going to have a rough time. Interesting to see that Alice actually fails the essential test that Chise ends up succeeding, which is probably not a good thing because Chise is now cursed. We do get a bit of a look into the relationship between the two where Renfred essentially cooperates to keep Joseph away from Alice. It's that I'm going to protect you thing, and I can really do see it. I see the I am the master, I'm going to protect my student type situation. I definitely see that kind of relationship. Maybe Renfred just doesn't see her in another way. They definitely resemble a family to me, but that's essentially not what she wants. It's nice to see the two counter because, again, you've got Elias and Chise, which is probably what Alice actually wants, whilst Chise at this point needs a bit of clarification, and we finally get that clarification we have on the roof, roughly what's going on. I think they're still equally confused, but it's a bit more of a, we both are like this is what we both enjoy, so we may as well continue if it makes us both happy. Initially, when Chise is trying to describe it to Alice, it's a, maybe we're married, maybe we're not quite sure. But I think we are. It's a very complicated situation, and I see it as a complicated situation. But yeah, we do get the confirmation that Chise has been sleeping in Elias's bed. Alice definitely playing the tsundere Alice this week. Doesn't want to exactly shout it out. You know what she wants to say, but she doesn't want to spell it out. Seeing her getting blushing and a bit more frustrated. We know what's going on, but you yourself, I think you need to take a bit of time to work through a few things. The moment on the roof was quite nice as well, where we finally get our answer. The fact that he thought it was convenient. In his eyes, the idea of an apprentice and a spouse were roughly the same. It's all coming down to interpretation once again, which is why I think it's nice to have Simeon state what we're dealing with in the episode. Chise then being the downer, stating that, well, we've actually got divorced nowadays, and once upon a time, a spouse wouldn't leave. But nowadays, people do leave. If they're not happy, they will leave. Still think there's a different role for both, but I think the word she's looking for is a soulmate. And to me, a soulmate is an important person who comes into your life, even if it's for a week, even if it's for a day, they have a meaning or they touch your life in a certain way. Mainly good. Doesn't have to be sexual at all. I believe that there's soulmates. I think you can have many different types of soulmates. Whenever you meet a friend who really is just dear to you, you eventually drift away. They've done their part, they're gone again. I believe that you have many soulmates in your life. That is my interpretation. Again, it's interpretation on this idea of roles. She's saying wants to feel wanted. She wants to have a home, to feel like somebody values her, which is why at the moment this works. Elias doesn't want to let her go, and this works for her, so it is happy for her. And as she says, it makes me happy. Elias enjoying being the role of, well, what he considers as a husband, it makes him happy. For now, we continue being this married couple, even though Chise states that I'm still the master in this situation. But what really matters is you both are getting happiness from it. You can both agree that this works for us. It's a benefit for us both. So we get to continue. So these guys get to talk it out. Then we flip to, again, the counter where Alice is now even more frustrated and gets to the point where I'm angry. I'm going to confront you. I really understand this. Because Alice starts to say, I don't understand it. And Alice states, I don't want to be protected. I want to be seen as equal. I want to be greater. I'm done with being protected. Then what I think Renfred means on the way back is it's not a case of words, it's actions. Alice needs to start taking actions. If you want me to see you not as a child, prove to me you're not as a child. Prove to me that you don't need protecting. Prove to me that you are taking things seriously. Go to your classes, don't skip. That is what I think Renfred is trying to state. And I don't think he's ruling it out. If she was to turn around and prove I don't need protecting, I can protect you back, maybe be open to the idea because you're approaching it as an adult. Alice is there shouting, trying to get her feelings across and not making any sense. That's what I think the situation is. Renfred is really mature. I do have to say, hats off to him. I'm very happy that that's how he's approaching the situation, because Alice might want that relationship, but I don't think at the moment, I don't think you're quite there. I think maybe maturity levels you're not there. Chise and Elias have a different kind of maturity to them where they both talk it out as equals. There's no shouting at all there, but Alice is still the one getting frustrated. So if you want to be seen in a certain way, you have to act in a certain way. Moment at the end again, I don't quite know what's going on in these little secret ending scenes. Something is going on. I don't think it's good. Something's being collected and it looked dangerous. Somebody in the school, and I'm not quite sure who. We were told last week, I believe, when we were going through the houses. One house was in charge of data collection. I have a feeling it might be that house, and maybe it's to do with Veronica. We've got this situation coming up and we're seeing them in the teasers, so maybe we're going to get clarification on that. So that is my interpretation of this week's episode. You guys will no doubt have your own interpretations. What do you think of the idea of a spouse and a student having roughly the same role? Because I don't think they are the same role with a spouse and a student. I guess they both have something to teach you, so maybe that is the case. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Look after yourselves. I'm going to go and rest my eyes now. Have a great day, guys. Bye bye.